Hey guys, welcome to your practice. I'm Caroline, and this is day 2 of the virtual yoga retreat. So today we're going to be breaking down mountain pose, which is also known as Tadasana. We're going to break down quadruped, which is like tabletop pose, being on your hands and knees. We're going to break down plank, and then finally downward facing dog is kind of the peak pose of this day. Always good to kind of go through these foundations every couple of weeks just to make sure that you're in proper alignment and that you're taking care of your body. Yoga should not be full of any pain. If you're experiencing pain in any of these yoga poses, feel free to leave me a message or drop a comment down below, and I would be very happy to address these issues. It's really important for us to learn how our biomechanics work so that we can age really gracefully. That's one of the main benefits, so that we can have really good posture. There's just so many things that these little tiny trinkets of information will help you with. So, Tadasana, mountain pose. It's the very beginning of a lot of common sun salutations. So you lift the arms up and you forward fold. Anyways, as a yoga teacher, when I'm teaching in classes, public classes, I see people often, whenever I cue mountain pose, they just relax and they just kind of stand there and look around or like grab their water bottles, but it's actually a really active pose. And if you're doing it right, you can be burning a lot of calories. You'll feel all of the effort pretty immensely. One big tip about it is we want all of our muscles to be firing. And when we're doing this, biologically, we're releasing tons of calcium into our muscles. And it's really cool because when we get all these muscles really active and engaged, it's easier for our spine to stay in proper alignment. It's easier for us to sit up nice and tall when we're sitting in a chair or sitting on a couch. So you just want to really work on these isometric movements, they literally just mean that you're contracting the muscle and you're not actually like doing any moving around per se. So we're gonna need a wall at some point. If you have a wall in your house, like a door even, whatever you have nearby, a window, and then we'll be needing a block. If you don't have a block, a blanket or towel would work great. So we're gonna get started about talking about our feet. So the feet are the foundation for most of our yoga poses, especially all the ones that are standing. So you'll come to stand with your feet about as wide as your hips. And it's so fascinating to me because you know your favorite pair of shoes that you've had for years and years, and they start to wear down on a certain corner of the sole of the shoe? That indicates where you tend to hold your weight. And oftentimes we all tend to, for me personally, I just like sink all of my weight into my outer heel. And that's where all my shoes wear down. So my goal is to kind of shift the weight. We want to think about the feet as having 4 corners. And I'll show you. We have the big toe mound, which is your first corner. We have the inner heel, second corner. We have the outer heel, third corner, and the pinky toe mound, which is the 4th corner. So when you're here, I want you to spread your toes. We wear so many tight constricting shoes that ultimately could lead to some back pain, some hip dysfunction. So when you spread your toes, you're just opening up all of that plantar fascia, all of the fascia. I'm sure you've heard of this word. It's like saran wrap that wraps all around all of your muscles. We actually have muscles in our feet, and when we don't use them, we lose them. So in mountain pose, I want you to constantly work on spreading the toes. If you feel any foot cramps, it's kind of weird, it might happen. Don't worry, just kind of shake them out and try to come back to it. So spread your toes wide, and we're gonna lift your toes up off the floor. And I've been doing this for a long time, so that's why I can do this, but see if you can just put your big toe down. Okay, so when you're doing this action, lifting the other 4 toes away from the floor, you start to really anchor down through the big toe mound, and you start to fire up your arches of your feet. We're gonna anchor down through the second corner, the inner heel, anchor down through the outer heel, the third corner, and ankle down through the pinkies. And it's so crazy, y'all, when you do this, because you can actually feel it all the way up your legs. You feel all of these stabilizing muscles kind of start to come together and activate. And so from here, we want to work on charging the muscles of the legs. Lengthen your tailbone down, almost like you're tucking it, but not overly doing it. We want to bring your shoulder blades together on the back and shoulders down away from the ears when the arms are down low. When you start to play with different arm movements, you want to have this natural, it's the glenohumeral rhythm, which is just a fancy word for like your humerus, which is your arm bone, and the glenoid cavity, which is like the little ball and socket on your shoulder blade. Your shoulder blades want to lift up when you reach your arms up, but we'll get to that later. So just focus on your feet. That's a really good place to start. And then from the feet all the way up to your shoulders, you want to kind of do a checklist, like a mental checklist. Feet activated, leg muscles fired up, tailbone tucked, core strong, shoulder blades together on the back and down. Okay, so it's a lot of things to work on. We're gonna do mountain pose at the wall now. Okay, so we have our wall, we have our blanket. If you don't have a block, you can roll this little blanket up and stick it in between your legs. So that's what we're gonna go for. If you have a block, it's a little bit better, but it's okay. If not, no worries. So we're gonna take the block in between your legs, and then we're gonna walk back to the wall. So when you find a wall, the goal here is to figure out how your posture is. Like, where do you stand in space? So if I'm not thinking about it, my head definitely juts forward and my shoulders come forward a little bit. I'm working on that, but we can work on that by coming to the wall and working on 3 major points. So we have the sacrum, which is this big, huge bone at the base of the spine. It's 5 fused vertebrae. We want to get that as flat up onto the wall as possible. And then the second part we're going to be working on is the shoulders. So shoulders back and down. And then the third part is the skull, the head. You can use your peace sign fingers, bring them to your chin, tuck your chin a little bit, and then just press your chin back. We're definitely doing like a sexy double chin right now. And just let your right arm come down. So from here, we want to think about firing up all of those muscles, getting all of them strong so they can support us. So focus on the feet first. Lift and spread your toes. Ground down through the 4 corners of the feet evenly. If you can, bonus points if you can press your big toes down and lift the other 4 toes up off the floor. Feel your shoulder blades come together and really lift your core. Feel like there's a string between your pubic bone and the sternum that you're pulling in and down together. And here, I'm definitely feeling a lot of work, especially in my core. This is going to address a lot of issues for some of us who tend to live with our booties sticking out. You know, it's called an anterior tilt of your pelvis. And then on the contrary, we have some people who are really tucked under. So this wall is kind of giving you that feedback as to whether or not you should be kind of lengthening the tailbone down towards the floor, or maybe like kind of feeling like you're sticking your bum back a little bit in space. You can look at a mirror, you can watch yourself do this, you can film yourself, and it's just gonna give you some really helpful feedback. The block is just there to help you squeeze into the center of the midline is what a lot of yoga teachers call it. Like, think about your spine as being your midline and just hugging and squeezing it all in, and just keeping everything active. As far as the hands go, you can take the palms forward. That's like proper anatomical position. It also helps you get your shoulder blades together on the back when you have this external rotation of the upper arms. Some people prefer to have the palms by their thighs, whatever feels best for you. And, of course, we all have our own histories of injuries and whatever it might be. So if something hurts your shoulder, do the opposite, do the other one and see if that feels better, or leave me a comment, let me know. So that's mountain pose, and we're gonna move on to the floor. We're gonna work on hands and knees. So now we're gonna work on a very common yoga pose called quadruped in the physical therapy world. Some people call it tabletop pose. I think there's a Sanskrit name for it, but I don't remember it. Anyways, So mountain pose, what we just worked on, we want to think about that length in the spine and that really good posture, and we want to kind of bring most of those checkpoints into every other yoga pose that we do. And I'll try to keep reminding you on how to do that. I feel like the first time I heard that it was very confusing to me, but now that I've become more adjusted to what that really means, I would like to, it's very important information. So we're gonna come to hands and knees tabletop pose. If you haven't stretched out your wrists, take a few minutes before you do anything on your hands to just pull your fingers back and just spread the palm and spread the thumb and feel, the stretch, just kind of prepare the wrists. We want to get a little blood flow. We want to get these muscles starting to kind of, we want to give them a little knock and be like, hey, I'm about to, do some work, so get ready. So we're going to come onto hands and knees. Some of the benefits of this pose is that by putting weight into your hands, you're actually encouraging your bones to grow in width, which is really cool. It's called appositional growth. And when we hit like 20 or so, our growth plate and our bones stop growing longer, but throughout our entire life, our bones can grow wider. So we want that to happen so that we can keep our bones nice and strong and healthy. So this is one of the many benefits of putting weight into your hands. So kind of like we did with our feet, I want you to focus on your hands for a moment. So spread the fingers nice and wide. And we want to think about the four corners of your hand. So pointer finger mound is 1, thumb mound is 2, the outer kind of bottom pinky region is 3, and then the pinky mound is 4. So when you're here on hands and knees, I want you to press down through your fingertips so much that you start to see them become a little white. And focus on the four corners of your hands. So you can kind of do the same thing of lifting your fingers off the floor, spreading them wide. You'll feel there's actually a little arch in our hand right here. It's like a carpal tunnel area where people have some pain. If this causes pain, I'll show you another way to do this, but we're gonna spread your fingers really wide, and it's important to have your pointer fingers pointing directly forward. So when we have the fingers pointing directly forward, we can start to focus on this isometric movement of dialing the hands out to the sides. So the right hand is kind of dialing out to the side, to the right side. Left hand is kind of dialing out to the left side, but if you notice, I'm not actually doing that motion. I'm feeling that motion. And it's important to try to get your elbows as straight as you can so that you can squeeze the triceps. Remember to activate all of the muscles in the body. That's what we're going for. And we're also going to kind of add a couple different little elements to this. So if your knees feel weird when you're doing this, you can take a blanket and place it underneath your knees. Just a little extra support, a little extra cushion. And if you feel like your wrists hurt while you're doing this, you can take blocks underneath your hands or even cans. And what this is going to help to do is it's going to bring more weight into your knees so you're not putting all of your weight into your hands. From here, we're going to keep your arms really straight and we're going to align the spine. So we want to imagine there's like a wall or a foam roller or a rolled up yoga mat on your spine. And we want to lengthen, so kind of the knees are directly under your hips and maybe even closer in to prevent your back from arching. It's not that that's bad, but we want to keep everything really strong and isolated. So keep the core moving in. Spread your toes. Lengthen the tailbone back behind you. We want to lengthen the spine and squeeze your shoulders down away from your ears. That's going to help you to fire up a bunch of your rotator cuff muscles that are kind of found like the serratus anterior, like right underneath your armpit region. And I want you to tuck your chin, but we don't want our head to sog down. We want to keep it nice and lifted. And remember the thing we did for mountain pose, bring peace sign fingers to your chin and press your chin back. You're gonna feel like you're doing a double chin, but this is very good for what we're working on right now. You can add different variations. You can step one leg back, you can lift it up off the floor, you can pulse the leg, you can bend your knee, you can pulse the leg, you can take one arm forward, your other leg back. This is a very common physical therapy pose called bird dog. And you just want to prevent your low back from wanting to cave in. We want to really use that core to prevent that from happening. And then you can lower down, and we're going to move on to the next pose, which kind of builds up from hands and knees, from tabletop. We're going to work onto progressing back into plank pose. So we'll come, back down into your tabletop and go through all of those little cues we just worked on. Ground down through the four corners of the hand. Keep the spine really long. Bring peace sign fingers so that you press back. And we're going to keep the arms strong, and these are a fun little move called scapular push-ups. What this is doing is it's going to be mobilizing your shoulders, kind of gears them up. Oftentimes we hold a lot of tension in our shoulders, like in our traps. So this is going to kind of help with that. And also it's just firing up those rotator cuff muscles that we really want activated for us. So you're going to do scapular protraction. So press down through your fingertips really firmly. We want to kind of dial the hands out energetically and keep the spine really long. Find that mountain pose. Everything is active, everything is working. And then we're gonna keep the arms straight, but soften the soften the chest down towards the floor. Squeeze the shoulder blades together on the back. And then press the floor down and away. Feel your shoulder blades protract, kind of move away from each other. Keep the arms straight, soften the chest down, squeeze the shoulder blades together, and just start to do this motion a couple more times, going as fast or slow as you want. And really just work on keeping the arms straight and feeling this mobilization of your shoulder blades. Okay, so we'll tuck your toes, and you can roll out your wrists if they feel a little tired. You can stretch them out the opposite way from how we did earlier. And we're gonna come into plank pose. All right, so hands and knees. We're gonna work on those scapular push-ups. Those are gonna kind of build us up into our plank. So keep the arms straight, soften the chest, feel the shoulder blades hug together on the back. Stay here. I want you to imagine that you're pressing down into the floor even harder, and feel your shoulder blades as they start to move away from each other, and then stay here. A common thing I see in plank pose are people who are really protracting in the shoulders, and this isn't an optimal position for really getting your core and your glutes involved. So we want to keep the chest kind of melting down towards the floor, arms straight, of course, but we might, kind of move the shoulder blades away from each other just a little bit. Squeeze the shoulder blades or the shoulders down away from your ears. Lengthen your spine and neck. From here, we're going to step your right foot back, and we're going to step your left foot back into plank. We're coming down onto the knees, and here I just really want you to work on your neck. Keep the neck lifted, squeeze your bum, and tuck your tailbone. Keep the spine long, keep it lifting, and then we'll rest. You can just bring your bum back to your seat, or your seat back to your heels for a little child's pose. And we're gonna roll onto your back. We're gonna practice plank a couple of different ways. So this is called hollow body. It's an exercise that a lot of gymnasts use for finding handstand, which we are gonna be doing an inversion series coming up soon, so stay tuned. But we're gonna start by laying on your back for this version of plank or hollow body. So the floor is like the wall. We have really great feedback. It keeps your spine long, and it kind of lets you know where we need to be when we're flipping everything upside down. So when we're in like a regular version of plank. So we'll take your arms up to the ceiling. If you have a block handy, you can take a block in between your hands. And we're gonna start to squeeze your bum so much and tuck your tailbone. Pull your belly in and down towards your spine. And then hover the toes off of the floor without pushing your stomach out. I see a lot of people, they kind of think that that's how you engage your core. But really you gotta suck it all in. And you can stay here for 30 seconds, a minute. I'm trembling. But that's a really good way to kind of amp up your plank and start to get strength in the core and the glutes. So both of those things really have to be fired. Bring your knees into your chest, rock yourself on up to seated. And we're gonna do a plank with a block. Remember, you can use the blanket in between your legs if you don't have a block. So we're gonna get that block really far up your thighs. Come back into quadruped tabletop pose. Point your fingers, point forward, go through your checklist. Ground down through the four corners of the hands, feel the arch of the hand lift up. Keep the arms straight and do a few scapular push-ups. And then we're gonna melt the chest down. Keep the chin moving towards the chest and then press the floor down and away just a little bit. And then we're gonna shimmy your knees back and lift up into a full plank, or you can stay on your knees. So from here, what I wanna do is I just wanna squeeze into the block and tuck your tailbone, almost imagining you can bring your bum onto this block. Shoulders stack over the wrists, and you're actively pressing out through the heels. This is gonna keep your spine just as long as if you had a wall behind you or the floor. And see if you can keep the arms straight, fire up the triceps, squeeze the shoulders down away from the ears, and then rest. It's very tricky, very hard stuff. So, you can find a comfortable seat and take a few breaths if you would like. I know I just worked you pretty good on some very basic movements, but we are gonna come into downward dog. So, just whenever you're ready, if you need to pause the video and get some water, feel free. I like to start downward dog from tabletop, and we'll kind of like transition into it. So, one of the benefits of downward dog, it's really good for the hamstrings. You're also getting that appositional bone growth, that calcium is kind of being laid down in the bone, or collagen. And it's just a really lovely pose all in all. So from here, from tabletop, do the scapular push-ups. Feel where your spine needs to be. Keep your chin tucked, shoulders come down away from the ears. We're gonna step the right foot back and step the left foot back. Full plank. And then from here, lift your hips up and back. You might hear some creaks and pops, that's okay. No worries. We're gonna walk your feet in just a little bit. Feet are as wide as your hips. Hands are about as wide as your shoulders. And we're gonna bend your knees and lift the hips. So I'm sure because we're putting a lot of weight into your hands that a lot of your upper body is working. But we really want to get the legs firing up too, so kind of squeeze the glutes in towards each other. And we're going to fire up the muscles of the legs, hug in the lowest part of your belly, and press down through the floor, squeeze your shoulders up towards your ears. So there's a couple of different schools of thought on the shoulders moving up towards your ears. Like I said earlier, when you lift your arms up to the ceiling, your glenohumeral rhythm, you naturally want to lift your shoulder blades. It's how, if you're reaching up for like a book on a bookshelf, you're not going to keep your shoulders down away from your ears because it doesn't feel natural. But I do hear a lot of yoga teachers do the cue where if your arms are lifted, they say take your shoulders down away from your ears. And that's not problematic. It feels really nice in the moment. But if you do it over time, it's kind of like pinching your skin and doing it repetitively. And then you'll start to see it gets a little red and irritated. That's kind of what happens with your shoulders. And actually at the physical therapy clinic that I work at, we often get a bunch of yogis with shoulder problems because of that. So just be mindful when the arms are lifted, use your traps, these big, huge muscles on your necks that attach all the way to kind of like in the middle of your spine. We want to use those muscles to help us stay strong. They're kind of like the glutes of our upper body, and the glutes are super important. We'll kind of get to that later. So I hope you've had some cool insights. Maybe you've learned a few new things about alignment of these kind of common yoga poses. So just remember to always work on mountain pose and always use that as a way to kind of segue into the more advanced yoga poses that we will be exploring throughout this challenge. So have a beautiful rest of your day. Stay safe, take care of yourself, and we'll see you tomorrow.